So 15. Now notice on this problem how there is a equal sign, okay? Whenever you have an equal sign, you need to first note what your extraneous solutions are, because if that becomes one of your answers, you know that it won't work. So on this problem, what are my extraneous solutions?
0 and 4.
Okay, 0 and 4. So we just kind of make a side note of that in case those end up becoming our answers. Now, when you have an equal sign, you can get rid of your fractions by multiplying by the common denominator. So what would we be multiplying every single term by?
X minus 4.
Very good. X and x minus 4. So I write this next to every single term. So on my first term, and I suggest you do it the way that I'm doing it so you don't mess up, I cross out my x's and I'm left with 10 times x minus 4. I would write that out, 10 times x minus 4. And we'll distribute in a minute. Okay? On the next term, nothing will cancel. So I have plus 3x times x minus 4. Because nothing cancels, I have all of that right there. And then I have equals, and my x minus 4's cancel, so I am left with x times x plus 9. Questions before I move to the next step? Okay, so we're all good there?
Yeah.
All right, so now we have to go through and distribute everything. So I distribute the 10 through here, and I get 10x minus 40. Next, I'm distributing 3x. So I have 3x times x, which is 3x squared, and 3x times negative 4, which is negative 12x, equals, perfect, x squared plus 9x is correct. Next, combine your like terms on each side if you have like terms. So, and I'd also write it in descending order. So I'm going to write this side as 3x squared, and then I have a 10x and a negative 12x, which makes negative 2x, and then I have minus 40, equals x squared plus 9x. Okay, at this point now, are we going to move everything to the left or to the right? Left is correct. Why are we going to do that? Good, you want your highest exponent to be positive. So I'm going to subtract x squared and subtract 9x. Okay, so when I do that, I am left with 2x squared minus 11x minus 40 equals 0. And we need to factor. Very good. We can't take out a GCF, so we have to do our bottoms up over under. So I'm going over by 2. I get x squared minus 11x minus 80 equals 0. So are there any numbers that can multiply to be negative 80 and add to be negative 11? Good. Negative 16 and a positive 5. And remember, you can go through and start with all the numbers, doing 1 and 80, 2 and 40, check 3, 4 and 20, and just keep going till you find the numbers. Okay? What do we want to not forget?
Divide by 2.
Good. Under by 2. Divide each of these by 2 and reduce. So when I do that, I get x minus 8 and 2x plus 5. And when we set those equal to 0, what do they equal?
8 and negative 5 over 2.
Good. And do those match any of our extraneous solutions? No. So those are my answers, 8 and negative 5 over 2. Make sure you check your extraneous solutions because I believe there's at least one question on your test where you will get rid of an answer. Okay? All right, questions on 15 before we move to 16. All right, 16. So again, there's an equal sign, which means we need to write the extraneous solutions. Okay? Factor this so you can help find your extraneous solutions. So when I factor that, what will it be?
Positive x plus 2 and x minus 1.
Perfect. X plus 2 and x minus 1. So what are extraneous solutions?
Positive 1 and negative 2.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to write that to the side to remind myself. Also notice that I kind of write it by where I'm going to write my answer. So hopefully it'll like clue me in. Oh yeah, that's not an answer when I'm writing down my answer. Okay, what would be my LCD that I multiply every term by?
X squared plus, or x, yeah.
Good, x plus 2 and x minus 1. So we have x plus 2, x minus 1 next to every term. All right, so when I do that, my first one, x minus 1's cancel, and I'm left with 1 times x plus 2, which I'm just going to write as x plus 2, but if you want to put the 1 in front, you can. On my next term, my x plus 2's cancel, and I'm left with 1 times x minus 1. So it's really just x minus 1 equals, and what happens here? The whole bottom cancels with that, because that was my LCD, and so I'm just left with 3. Next, you always want to simplify. So we have x and x on this left side, which will end up making 2x, and then 2 and negative 1 makes a 1 equals 3. Next, what will I do? Subtract 1. So I have 2x equals 2, and the last thing I will do is what? Divide by 2. So x equals what? 1. So when I go up here to write x equals 1, I notice that 1 is an extraneous solution. And that was my only answer, which means if 1 will not work, what's the solution? No solution. Okay? Questions on 16. Okay, 17. What's the first thing I should do? Extraneous solutions. What are my extraneous solutions?
Yeah, never mind.
0 and, you're okay, 0 and what? Negative 3, good. And what will I multiply every term by?
X and x plus 3.
Very good. X times x plus 3 next to every term. Okay, on my first term, my x's cancel out. And on this one, since it's not 1 times something, I'm going to write it down. So I have 5 times x plus 3 left over. On my next term, nothing cancels, and I have negative 2x times x plus 3 equals, and on my last term here, x plus 3's cancel, and I'm left with 2x. Okay? Now I will do what? Distribute. So we have 5 times x, which is 5x, and 5 times 3 is 15. Don't forget this is a negative 2 I'm distributing through there, or a negative 2x. Negative 2x times x is negative 2x squared, and negative 2x times 3 is negative 6x equals 2x. What's next? Combine like terms. Simplify. So I'm going to start with my x squared term. So I have negative 2x squared. 6x and negative 6x is negative x. Plus 15 equals 2x. Are we good? So all I had to combine was the 5x and the negative 6x, right? Which made negative x. Which way am I going to move things?
To the left. To the right.
To the right.
No, to the right?
To the right.
To the right. Why am I going to move it to the right? You want your highest exponent term to be positive. Okay? The x squared needs to be positive. So I'm going to add 2x squared over here. I'm going to add x. And I'm going to subtract 15. So when I do all of that, I end up with 2x squared, because I'm going to write that first. X and 2x makes 3x, and then minus 15 equals 0. Now I'm going to factor. You can try over under, but it doesn't work. So what do we have to do? No. Which is quadratic formula. And you have it. Quadratic formula. Okay, so remember, so on this one, A is 2, B is 3, and C is negative 15. So when I plug that in, I have negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 15 all over 2 times 2. 3 squared is 9. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8, and negative 8 times negative 15 is positive 120. Okay, when we put that together, we get negative 3 plus or minus the square root, and 120 plus 9 is all over 4. And that will not break down and bring out any pairs, so that's your answer. This also does not match an extraneous solution.
We do over and under, over and under.
Oh, we can try. If I went over by 2 on this, x squared plus 3x minus 30, there aren't any numbers that multiply to be 30 and add to be 3. So since that didn't work, because if you go through, you have like 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 4 won't work. Oh, wait. Yeah, 4 won't work, right? 5 and 6. And if you look through all those, none of those will add or subtract to make 3. Okay? Tiffany?
How do you know if it matches extraneous solutions?
So neither one of these will give you a 0 or a negative 3, because if they did, this would simplify to make that number, and it didn't. Okay? Meaning like the root 129 would end up becoming just a regular number, and it doesn't work. So you're always just looking for one of those numbers to show up in your answer. Okay? All right. Are we good with 17? Okay, moving on to 18. There is no equal sign on this one, which means you're not going to get x to equal anything. You're only simplifying. So you're not worrying about extraneous solutions, okay, but you are worrying about getting a common denominator. So you need to factor, okay? So this one factors to be x minus 6 and x minus 4. Those add to be negative 10, multiply to be positive 24. This factors to be x minus 6 and x plus 1. Okay? So when you look at all of this, what would be your least common denominator?
Six.
Good. X minus 6, x minus 4, and x plus 1.
Big one.
Okay, so when you go to your first term, so notice I write that fractions with my common denominator, and I figure out what is missing. What do I need to multiply by?
X plus 1.
So you're multiplying by x plus 1 to the top and the bottom. Okay, when I do that, I have to distribute that 5 through, and I get 5x plus 5. On my second fraction, what am I missing on this one?
X minus 4.
So I'm multiplying by x minus 4 to the top and the bottom. And I distribute the 3 through, and I get 3x. So then we simplify. 5x and 3x is 8x, and 5 and negative 12 is negative 7 over your x minus 6, x minus 4, x plus 1. Can I factor or do anything there? So that is our answer. Okay, last one on this page. Is there an equal sign? Since there's an equal sign, what are my extraneous solutions? Only 0. Okay, what am I going to multiply every term by? X squared is correct. So I do x squared to every term. So I end up getting x squared. Here x cancels out and I get 8x. And here x squareds cancel out and I get minus 1 equals 0. The only way to factor this is by quadratic formula. Nothing will multiply to be 1 and add to be 8. Okay, so A is 1, B is 8, C is negative 1. So we have negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 1 all over 2 times 1. 8 squared is 64. Negative 4 times 1 times negative 1 makes a positive 4. So we end up getting negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 68 all over 2. And when you factor that out and reduce it, you end up getting negative 4 plus or minus root 17. And I'm going to stop this.